my name is Maureen Backman. I'm the founder of the Muzzle Up Project, and this next series of videos is going to talk about how to muzzle train a dog who also has some resource guarding tendencies in their behavior. I have had clients currently and in the past approach me, and they've gotten stuck because they've gotten their dog to really love their muzzle, which is excellent, but then of course what happens is the dog loves the muzzle so much the dog starts to resource guard the muzzle, which can present some challenges when moving forward in the training process. Fortunately, there are some ways to both work on the resource guarding behavior itself and some ways to adjust and modify your muzzle training plan to help get your dog through this step to ensure that both the process stays fun and enjoyable for both the human and the learner, the animal, and also so that we don't trigger the animal and having them rehearse the resource guarding behavior.
In this video, I'm demonstrating one thing that you can do if you have a resource guarding dog, which is to choose a dummy object, something that the dog doesn't find valuable, hasn't really encountered in the real world before, and to do object exchanges. So as you can see with Earl, I'm taking the object away, giving him some high value cookies once I take the object away, and then I'm putting the object back and doing another repetition. The benefit of using a dummy object, of course, is that the dog isn't likely to resource guard this object. This object has no value, and it's a nice way to warm your dog up to the process. Now, what you can also do is you could either start out with or work up to doing muzzle object exchanges, which means putting the muzzle in front of the dog, taking it away, dropping cookies, letting your dog know that good things happen when you take the muzzle away, and repeating the process. And again, this is the intensity level that you're going for. You don't want to see any symptoms of resource guarding. You don't want to see the dog stiff or uncomfortable or snarling or growling. You really want the dog to be completely at ease during this process.
In addition to some proactive ways that you can train your dog to not resource guard the muzzle, another thing you can do is some antecedent arrangements to help prevent the resource guarding behavior from appearing in the first place. One of those options is to consider where you're delivering your reinforcement. So here's the muzzle. Now, for some dogs, placing peanut butter or cream cheese or baby food on the inside of the muzzle is a wonderful way to encourage them to start to get their snout in the muzzle, lick the food around. They still get those positive associations with the muzzle, and then you can gradually fade out the lure and start having them bonk their nose in the muzzle for cookies. For other dogs, the act of putting something really valuable on the muzzle has now turned the muzzle into a pretty good resource guarding object. You can think about you're kind of turning it into a stuffed Kong or some really valuable bully stick. So for those dogs, I would recommend a couple of things. First, don't smear the inside of the muzzle with food, because there's a chance that what you're doing is you're increasing the chances for that resource guarding behavior to occur. What you can do instead is you can always lure the dog's nose through the muzzle, like I've shown in previous videos, and deliver the lure from your hands through there. The other thing you could do is, if you're either working on targeting or shaping your dog's nose to go into the muzzle, you can mark the behavior and then feed away from the muzzle so that the reinforcement, the valuable part, the food, is not right by the muzzle. Another benefit of this is it gets the dog away from the muzzle so that you can pick up the muzzle and reset for your next repetition. Again, these are antecedent arrangements designed to prevent the guarding behavior from happening in the first place. And something else to consider is the type of value of food that you're using. So for some dogs, you can use really high value food and the resource guarding isn't going to become an issue. For other dogs, let's say their favorite food in the world is peanut butter, and they really love peanut butter and you use peanut butter in muzzle training and they have a tendency to resource guard, using that really high value food could potentially increase the chances of them guarding the muzzle. So again, in those cases, you may want to still stick with something really valuable, but maybe lower the value a little bit. I'm not saying drop all the way down to saltines and kibble, but do something that's maybe not at the top level of that dog's food hierarchy as far as value. And again, every dog is going to be different, so it's probably going to take some experimenting to figure out what food works best. Another important factor to consider when muzzle training is your body position. Not only with resource guarders, but with any type of dog, but particularly with resource guarders, you want to think about the setup. So, for example, if you put the muzzle down and it has peanut butter in it and your dog is licking it, and then you want to take the muzzle away, well, guess what? You've just set yourself up for a prime resource guarding scenario because the dog has found something of value and now you're taking it away. In those cases, what you want to think about is perhaps having the dog come to you holding the muzzle. You could either lure or shape your dog so that their snout goes in the muzzle, and then you keep the muzzle in your possession, and then if you wanted to, you could always feed away to set up for your next repetition. Again, what this does is it helps lessen the pressure, lessen the intensity, because the last thing we want to do in a training setup is add more stress or add to the potential that the dog is going to display resource guarding behavior. In a previous video, I showed how you can set the muzzle up on a wall and then teach the dog to target their nose into the muzzle with the muzzle set up on the wall. The one thing I would advise in this scenario is, again, you're still setting up so that the dog is putting their snout in the muzzle independently without your hands. And if you go in to touch the dog or touch the muzzle, again, you're kind of setting yourself up for a prime resource guarding scenario. So if your dog doesn't resource guard the muzzle, again, these aren't things that you have to worry about. But for a resource guarder, these setups and considerations are going to be really, really helpful in helping you get through the muzzle training plan with as little stress as possible, both on you and your dog. Thanks, Earl.